In the winter of 1974, a machinist named Ray Delgado made his 12-year-old son a promise in the driveway of their small house outside Dayton, Ohio. The day the boy turned 18, the gleaming silver 1963 Corvette Sting Ray split window under the tarp in the garage would be his, free and clear. They shook on it, man to man in the cold. 6 months later, Ray Delgado left for a night shift he never came back from. And that car sat sealed in the dark, untouched for the next 37 years. Ray Delgado was not a wealthy man by any stretch of the word. He ran a lathe at a tool and die shop for close to 20 years, came home most nights with fine steel filings worked into the creases of his hands, and spent nearly every spare dollar he ever had on the one extravagance he'd allowed himself in his whole life, a 1963 Corvette Sting Ray, the rare split-window coupe, bought second-hand and half-wrecked in 1969 and rebuilt slowly, obsessively, in the detached garage behind the house. That single divided rear window had only been made for 1 year before Chevrolet did away with it, and Ray knew he was holding on to something that would never be built again. The neighbors remembered the sound of it more than the sight of it, that low, patient idle late on Sunday evenings, long after the boy had been put to bed. His son, Michael, grew up handing his father wrenches under that raised fiberglass hood, learning the names of parts before he'd learned his multiplication tables, falling asleep some nights to the smell of solvent and warm oil drifting in through his bedroom window. The Corvette was never really about the car for Ray. It was the one thing he was building that would outlast him, the single inheritance a machinist could actually leave in his son's hands, something with his fingerprints worked into every bolt. And so the promise he made that winter, the car on the boy's 18th birthday, was not a casual thing said in passing. It was, in Ray's quiet and deliberate mind, the whole point of all those long Sunday nights. What happened next has never been fully explained, not even by the people who were closest to it. On a cold Tuesday evening in June of 1974, Ray kissed his wife goodnight, told Michael they'd finally adjust the carburetor together that coming weekend, and left for the late shift at the plant. He clocked in at the usual hour. He clocked out at 3:15 in the morning, and a co-worker remembered him lighting a cigarette at the gate and turning up his collar against the cold. And somewhere in the 2-mile walk home between that factory gate and his own front door, Ray Delgado simply vanished. The Corvette was still in the garage, so he hadn't driven off. There was no note, no money drawn from the bank, no packed bag, no argument that anyone could ever name, no other woman, no debt, nothing. The police worked it for a few months, dragged a nearby canal, questioned the men on his shift, and then quietly let it go cold, filed under that flat and unbearable word, unresolved. His wife, Eleanor, refused every gentle suggestion that he had chosen to leave them, and she refused just as firmly to ever set foot in that garage again. She locked it the same week he disappeared, hung the only key on a nail inside the kitchen door, and for the rest of her life she never once let a living soul slide that bolt open. The car sat there in the dark, half of a promise, gathering a soft gray coat of dust, while the world outside kept moving on without the man who built it. Michael turned 18 in 1980. There was no birthday drive. The key stayed on its nail, and out of a loyalty to his mother that he could never quite put into words, he never once asked her for it. He grew up in the long shadow of that locked door, went to community college, became an electrician, married, raised 2 daughters of his own, and moved 40 minutes north to a town where nobody knew the story. But the garage never really let go of him. Every holiday he came home, he'd find some small excuse to stand out in the backyard and just look at it. That low building with the padlock his father's hands had been the last to touch, the paint on the door blistering a little more with every passing winter. His own daughters grew up asking about the grandfather in the photographs who was there and then simply wasn't, and he never quite knew what to tell them. Eleanor grew old inside the same house, and as the years wore on, she spoke about Ray less and less. Until near the very end, she talked about him as though he'd only stepped out for the night shift and was still, somehow, on his way back to her. She made Michael promise 2 things before she passed in the fall of 2011. That he'd bury her in the plot she had quietly kept empty beside her own for 37 years, still waiting for a husband to fill it, and that whatever he found behind that garage door, he would never, ever sell it. 3 days after her funeral, Michael stood alone in the backyard with the nail key warm in his fist, and for the first time in his entire life, he slid the bolt. The door swung up on hinges stiff with rust, and the smell reached him first. Old motor oil, mouse nests, and underneath it all, the faint, unmistakable ghost of his father's cigarettes. The Corvette sat exactly where Ray had left it in 1974. Tires flat and cracked. The silver paint dulled to the color of an old nickel. A fine gray blanket of dust over everything, but whole, untouched. A calendar on the wall was still turned to June of that year. On the workbench, still laid out in a neat and deliberate row the way his father had always kept them, were the tools from that last unfinished weekend. The carburetor job Ray had promised they would do together and never got the chance to. A single wrench set down mid-task as if he'd only stepped away for a moment, and taped to the center of the steering wheel, brittle and yellowed with age, was an envelope written in his father's blocky machinist's print. 2 words on the front. For Michael. What was folded inside that envelope, Michael has never told a single reporter, and he asks gently that we don't try to guess. What he will say is only this: he kept his promise and he never sold the car. He spent the next 2 years restoring it by hand, in that same garage with those same tools, refusing every offer that came his way once word got around. And when the split-window Sting Ray finally turned over and idled for the first time in 37 years, he swears it made the exact low, patient sound he'd once fallen asleep to as a boy, as though some small piece of his father had been waiting in there all along, just to say it back to him. Some inheritances are handed down, and some are simply waited for. Ray Delgado was never found, and Michael, for his part, has made a quiet and private peace with never knowing why. But the promise made in that cold driveway in 1974 was kept, in the end, by the only person left alive who could keep it. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to like it and subscribe, because every one of these cars is somebody's unfinished sentence, and there are far more of them waiting out there in the dark than you would ever believe. We'll open the next garage door together next time